Managing our minds is essential to how we show up. I know that as a doctor and professional coach, wife and mum to 3 sons, gosh, it sounds overwhelming when you say it out loud, but it doesn't have to be. If you are feeling exhausted, overwhelmed, and a little stuck on how to get back on track, Thrive is perfect for you. It's my self-paced program with practical strategies and mindset tools you can use anywhere, 24/7, and it's on sale for $49 at drjoebraid.com. If you prefer a one-on-one tailored catch-up with solutions designed specific to what's going on in your life right now, Power 60 is where we can connect and get straight into it. I can't wait to meet you. Or commit to 3 months of coaching with me, with program vitality to unlock ongoing personal support, training, resources including worksheets and audio content, and professional development for true transformation. Shout out to Sarah, who has already taken part and kindly said, "I cannot overstate the impact of Dr. Joe's coaching. I now set boundaries with kindness, push through procrastination, and have realistic goals and so much more." So if you also want to turn overwhelm into transformation, find out more at drjoebraid.com. There's a link in the show notes. Let's get into today's episode.
Welcome to the Burnout Recovery Podcast, a guiding resource dedicated to healthcare professionals on their journey to overcoming burnout. Spearheaded by Dr. Joe Braid, a certified professional coach and rehabilitation physician. This podcast offers practical strategies through expert interviews and personal resilience stories, providing invaluable tools for navigating professional challenges while prioritizing well-being. Regardless of your role in healthcare, this podcast acknowledges the toll of your work on your overall health and is committed to supporting your recovery from burnout and fostering a fulfilling, sustainable career. So, if you're ready to begin a transformative journey, join us for each new episode. Together, we'll navigate challenges, celebrate successes, and build a supportive community of healthcare professionals.
Welcome back to the Burnout Recovery Podcast, where we dive deep into the challenges faced by healthcare professionals and provide actionable strategies to overcome them. I'm your host, Dr. Joe Braid, and today we're talking about a topic that resonates with so many of us: people pleasing. People pleasing is a behavior that can seem harmless or even virtuous on the surface. After all, who doesn't want to be liked, appreciated, and helpful? But when taken too far, people-pleasing can lead to burnout, resentment, and a loss of self. Today, we'll explore how to recognize and address your people-pleasing tendencies, set healthy boundaries without guilt, confidently say no, prioritize your needs, and distinguish between saying yes out of obligation versus desire. I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which this podcast is recorded. I pay my respects to the elders past and present of the Wiradjuri Nation. The first step in overcoming people-pleasing is to recognize that you're doing it. Self-awareness is a great place to start in any journey of growth and personal improvement. It might sound simple, but people pleasers often don't realize how much of their behavior is driven by a desire to please others rather than themselves. So, this happens in healthcare. We're looking outward. We're looking often from a place of service. We're looking to help the people that come to us for our problem-solving skills, our solutions that we can bring to optimize the health or treat the condition that the individual might have. Here's 3 questions you could ask yourself to grow that awareness around if you are people-pleasing. Do you often agree to things you don't want to do just to avoid disappointing someone? Is it like seeing just one more patient before you leave clinic today, or addressing 3 things, not 1 or 2, in the same amount of clinic time? Do you feel anxious or uncomfortable when someone disapproves of you? For example, you've tested out setting a boundary and there was real pushback and you're like, oh, I don't know how well that landed. Do you often ignore your own needs to meet the needs of others? Okay, so the classic that definitely gets talked about in burnout recovery circles is listening to your body's needs, going to the bathroom when you need to go to the bathroom. I will never forget doing some group coaching in one of the emergency departments, and some of the doctors said, sort of tongue in cheek, we use the bathroom less often than the patient that comes in who hasn't used the bathroom for the last 12 hours. And, I will quote Kate Donovan, who does a lot of burnout recovery work as well. You gotta pee. It's repetitive. It's catchy. It's meaning listen to your body, trust your body, and do not ignore the needs of your own body to meet the needs of others. So in summary, if you answered yes to any of these questions, you might be engaging in people-pleasing behaviors. So how can we work around this? Let's start off with growing that awareness. Pay attention to situations where you feel compelled to say yes or go along with others, even if it's not what you truly want, and reflect on the why. I think this really helps us understand our behaviors that we take so much more deeply. Why do you feel the need to please? Is it a fear of conflict, a fear of rejection, or a desire to be seen as helpful or indispensable? Understanding your motivations can help you address them more effectively. So I referenced boundaries briefly before, and really one of the biggest challenges for people pleasers is setting boundaries. You might feel guilty for saying no or worry that others will think less of you. But setting boundaries is essential for you and your well-being. Here's how you can get started. So reframe your thinking. Setting boundaries isn't about being selfish. It's about protecting your energy and mental health. And honestly, people come in with energy levels in their boots, and they are so desperate to have some kind of reserve of energy that they can take into the next day or start the week with, or even have on a Sunday afternoon before the new week starts. I just want to have a bit of energy in my tank. So boundaries can be a good way to help with that energy management, almost in a way. It really allows you to show up fully for the things that truly matter. Start small. Begin with small, manageable boundaries. For example, if you're the one that always stays late at work, set a boundary that you'll leave on time at least twice a week. And then evaluate how you go with setting that boundary and how you manage to stay true to your boundary that you set for yourself. And be clear and direct. So when setting a boundary, communicate your needs clearly and without apology. For instance, I won't be able to stay late today as I have other commitments. Personally, I like to give a 10 to 20 minute reminder at the end of a clinic consultation, which really for the patient is providing a combination of expectations and also my boundaries to keep my clinic running smoothly. Remember, you're not responsible for other people's reactions to your boundaries. You're only responsible for taking care of yourself. Next, we're going to go into saying no. This can be incredibly difficult for people pleasers, but it's a powerful skill that will free up your time and energy for things that align with your values and goals. So here's a way that you can practice and strengthen your muscle in saying no. First of all, pause before responding. When asked to do something, take a moment to consider if you genuinely want to or can take it on. It's okay to say, let me think about it and get back to you. Secondly, keep it simple. You don't need to provide a long explanation. In fact, no is a complete sentence in itself. Or you could say, no, I can't take that on right now. Practice saying no. Like any skill, practice makes perfect. I'm not sure that I like that term perfect, but practice makes that skill easier and you're more confident in that. Try saying no in low stakes situations to build your confidence. So that might be outside of the workplace. It might be, some phone marketer calling you up and and trying to sell something or do a survey on the phone. Those things can happen quite often, or somebody in the street when you're walking through the street. And there's less of that sort of maybe professional relationship because it's a stranger in the street, and maybe you could use that as a space to practice saying no in a low stakes situation. And finally, offer an alternative. If you feel inclined, you can offer an alternative that works for you. For example, I can't help with that project or that research, but I'm happy to review it for you once it's done. And by saying no more often, you'll find that you have more time and energy to dedicate to the things that truly matter to you. So next, let's get into where do your needs sit compared to others around you? Getting clear on your priorities is another podcast in itself. But people pleasers often put others' needs ahead of their own, leading to burnout and resentment. Where are your needs in your list of priorities as you actually do things, I've got a great interview coming up next week with Johnny Bevan, who is a fellow burnout coach, and we talk about priorities in that episode. Stay tuned for that next week. It's crucial to understand that prioritizing your needs is not selfish. It's really necessary for your well-being. So, acknowledge your own value. You absolutely deserve the same care and attention that you give to others, and recognize that your well-being is just as important. Schedule some me time. Block out time in your calendar for self-care activities, whether it's exercising, reading, or simply relaxing. And treat this time as non-negotiable as, other commitments that you will have been showing up for years, I'm sure, as well. This relates to the sleep procrastination episode that I did recently as well, where people feel like they don't get any me time in the daytime, so they have their me time at nighttime and end up cutting their sleep time shorter to have their awake me time in the evening. Practice self-compassion. I talk about this often, and I think it's so relevant here when prioritizing your needs. When you feel guilty for putting yourself first, remind yourself that self-care is essential and you can't pour from an empty cup. Over time, you'll notice that taking care of your needs allows you to show up more fully for others. And the final point I'm talking about today around people pleasing is the importance to distinguish between saying yes because you truly want to and saying yes out of obligation. So here's a way to tell the difference between desire and obligation. Check in with your emotions. So when you're asked to do something, notice how you feel. Do you feel excited or happy about it? Or do you feel dread or resentment? Your emotions can be a really clear indicator of whether you're saying yes out of desire or obligation. Think about your motives. Are you agreeing to something because you genuinely want to help or because you're afraid of disappointing someone? Understanding your motives can help you make decisions that align with your true desires. And finally, practice authenticity. Give yourself permission to be honest about what you want. It's okay to prioritize your desires and say no when something doesn't align with them. So by becoming more aware of why you say yes, you can start making choices that honor your true feelings and needs. So people pleasing is a habit that many of us fall into, often without realizing it. But by recognizing and addressing these tendencies, setting healthy boundaries, confidently saying no, prioritizing your needs, and identifying when you're saying yes out of obligation, you can break free from the cycle of people pleasing and claim your time, energy, and self-worth. Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Burnout Recovery Podcast. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with someone who might benefit from it. If you feel like rating and reviewing the podcast, that really helps it reach more people around the world. And remember, taking care of yourself is not a luxury, it's a necessity. See you next week.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Burnout Recovery Podcast. If there's someone in your world who would also benefit from this, please share it with them. Remember, you are not alone, and there is hope for a brighter, more fulfilling future. Let's continue this journey together, one episode at a time. For more resources, including how to move from dread to delight, head to drjoebraid.com.